Did they make
No,
contact?
no. It's pretty close, but this is going to be a drag race.
Look at this.
Moves him to win it. Carl Edwards bump and dump and run.
Here comes Gordon right up to the bumper again.
You hear that wheel spin, Ben?
Yeah, I did hear that wheel spin.
The bump and run.
There it is.
Gordon underneath to the lead. 2 laps to go. But the bump and run is going to get Jeff Gordon the checkered flag at the end of the winless streak. Gordon wins the Sharpie 500 at Bristol.
And Maine really turned around, made a Reilly's cage up.
Welcome to the Bump and Run podcast. My name is Michael D. White, joined by my two best friends, Matt the Statman Reilly and Daytona Ron. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a Mother Nature type weekend because she was the big winner over the weekend. And I hope you had a Joey Logano type of Monday night because he was the big winner down at the Bristol Food City Dirt Race. Before we jump into it, I just want to say like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, available on all podcast platforms every Monday night, unless we got a rain delay over the weekend, and then it's a little bit late. Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. All the details right now at bumpandrun.com, bumpandrunpod.com, bump the letter N, runpod.com. Shout out to all the friends of the show. A lot of people have been chiming in on the Twitter page at bumpandrunpod. How you guys doing? Did you enjoy the weekend or the Monday night of racing down in Bristol at the dirt race?
I don't know if it's, because Atlanta was such a snoozer or if Bristol really was as good as we think it was. But boys, that was amazing racing.
Great weekend. Well, great Monday of racing, in my opinion, Matt. I totally agree with you. And it might be because Atlanta was a bit of a snoozer. I know we were all pretty hyped. Eric, what did you think about the racing on Friday night practice and the Monday truck race and the Monday Cup race?
After all the hype of the first mile and a half that was left a dud, I thought that all the hype for this race, man, did it come through. And, they put on one hell of a show all weekend long, despite the rain, the little bit of a hiccup in the weekend. But other than that, it was just excitement all race long.
I completely agree. And you want to know what? I thought Homestead was a great race a couple of weeks ago. I know we were all very excited for it. You guys were a little bit let down by Homestead. I think we were all let down by Atlanta last week. It was a snooze fest. And this was probably the most hype race all year besides the Daytona 500, of course, where they were talking about this dirt race in the beginning of the season, during the off season. Pretty much as soon as it was announced we were going to put dirt down on the concrete of Bristol and race cup cars on it, people started really either loving the idea, hating on the idea, just questioning whether it would be a disaster or not. And in my personal opinion, as an experiment, I think it delivered on all fronts. Do you guys want to jump right into our race grades here?
Well, I was just gonna say I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert. It's the highest race grade so far this season for me, for sure.
Have you
Go right into it, Matt?
Have you been?
I like that idea. I like that idea, race grades. I think we could go right into that.
Sure.
Have you been keeping tally of what your highest race grade was? I haven't. I have all my notes here. Let me take a look real quick.
I have a running list, so I guess I'll just go ahead and start it. So I have a running list, and real quick, I gave Daytona, the 500, a B, the road course a B+, Homestead a C, Vegas a B+, Phoenix a B, Atlanta a D, and then Bristol Dirt I gave an A- to. And the only reason it didn't get the A+ for me was, and it's a small little complaint, is that I think it should have been run at night. I'm not going to touch on the weather because there's absolutely nothing we could do about the weather. So there's no reason to complain about it or let that affect the race grade. So the only reason it wasn't an A+ is just because I think it should be run at night. They announced in the middle of the race that we are doing one again next year.
Yeah.
So I think that was the unanimous decision across pretty much what everybody is saying, is that maybe it should be run at nighttime. So I think NASCAR will hear that. And my prediction is that the Bristol Dirt Race next year will be a night race. But an A-, phenomenal racing. You had so many different storylines, like we all knew and we all talked about. There would be a million things going on, and there was at the end there was a sprint to the finish. The guy that nobody wanted to see won, but I'm not going to let that affect my race grade.
That's the thing. I saw on Twitter, we waited all this time for a Joey Logano win, and that pretty much summed it up for me. I thought it was still great, though. If I would have loved it if Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won.
He was there another lap or two, and I think he would have got him, but it was phenomenal. So that was my grade.
I completely agree with the start time too. I'll actually jump in more in depth with that a little later on. But Eric, what'd you think about the Bristol dirt race?
Ooh, I gave it an A. I know I gave last week the big old F to kind of set my grade where I'm going to go with these grades from here on out. And,
yeah.
I had to give this an A. It's a solid A. I didn't leave my seat all race long. It just kept me sucked into that television. And, there were battles all throughout the field. And I think I would have, and I don't know if this is really a big deal or not, I think I would have given it an A+ if, like Matt said, if they ran it at night, because I think the sun and the dirt and the dust was a big issue, which this is my reason. They went to single file about midway through that race for the restarts. And
yeah,
I just felt, for some of those guys at the beginning of that race, they got taken out because of those double wide restarts and being up high in that dust and not being able to see. And no fault of their own for any of the drivers that kind of, just got into somebody because they legitimately couldn't see. So switching that halfway through, going from double to single, it was, I think they needed to do that for sure. But, if you're a fan of some of those drivers that got taken out just prior to them making that decision, I thought that was something they had to do. But I think it could have been done maybe a little bit earlier to save some of those other cars. But overall, I just thought that race was just awesome. I just had a smile on my face and, seeing some of these drivers in these lower tier teams, getting rid of the splitter, getting these cars up off the ground, not just glued to the racetrack. The tire wear that was involved, you really see who these wheelmen are. And I love seeing that. And, it just doesn't put everything into the car. The driver actually has to control his tire wear and, don't use it up too early. And, you're seeing what we could get if, the aero dependent cars and packages, slowly start going away. I loved every minute of that race.
I think we mentioned it a little bit last week that we thought, like, at least I thought that this could be a real equalizer type race. They say like anyone can win Talladega, anyone can win Daytona. I really thought anyone could win Monday night at Bristol. I thought, and like, that's what I like to see. Just like you said, like you see who the true wheelmen are. You see who could adapt to the conditions. You saw who kept themselves clean.
Suarez led 58 laps. I mean, come on. How
I was
awesome
so
is that?
impressed with Daniel Suarez. Even last week, I said I was impressed with him at Atlanta and down in Bristol. Like, yeah, he led the most laps of his career down there. And I thought he did a phenomenal job. I don't think anyone really saw a new team like Trackhouse coming that close to a win too. I mean, he came in 4th place. That was his best finish since 2019 when he was with Stewart Haas Racing. So but Trackhouse is an RCR affiliate team, and we saw a lot of great RCR affiliates. I mean, Eric Jones, Daytona Ron's guy, he pulled off a top 10. My guy Tyler Reddick pulled off a top 10. I want to say Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he's in an RCR affiliated team with JTG Doherty. So strong day for RCR, except for Austin Dillon. He had a little bit of trouble in the beginning, but like, yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm not going to give it a full A. I give it an A+ for effort. I give it an A- /B+ in execution. Like you said, I think it should have been a night race to cut down on that visible dust and the sun. I mean, there was guys coming out of turn 2 that you couldn't see the car in front of you, and they showed those in-car cameras. And I'm like, I don't know how they're not wrecking. Like, it was a true... You relied on your spotter so much during that race, but yeah, I'm going to get
Mother Nature. Yeah. Other than Mother Nature,
yeah, And
dust and the sun was just like, I think if that was at night, I think they're going to listen to those dirt guys next year. And I think they're going to have that night because they were saying it from the get-go. Why isn't this at night? And, I think we found out really quick why they
I said it last week. I said it's a little confusing why this thing isn't being run at night. I was actually it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, up until about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I actually thought it was going to be a night race. And then I saw like a 3 o'clock start. I'm like, what are they doing?
The biggest problem, and this is pretty much everyone's complaint, is the network really controls when they put those races on now. Yeah. And the sad fact is Saturday night races don't get numbers. They don't get viewed as much as a Sunday afternoon. So I understand. I'm kind of hoping.
I call BS on that though. Like, I don't want to get bogged down in this, but like if it was Saturday night, it was Bristol dirt, people would have tuned in. Like,
absolutely.
I promise you they would have.
And you want to know what? I think honestly, I think putting the heat race and the truck race on Saturday, which was supposed to happen, was an experiment to see what those numbers would have been, because the truck race was supposed to start at 8 o'clock on Saturday night. I was kind of disappointed. Like, once the rain started and everything, I'm like, oh, well, goddamn, they could have did practice, Friday afternoon. They could have ran those heat races late in Friday afternoon, and then they got the truck series race on Friday night. Of course, hindsight's 2020, ifs and buts, candy nuts, all that shit. But I'm just going on what we saw on track. And honestly, Monday at my day job, I was watching the truck race. I thought Martin Truex Jr. did a hell of a job. He led pretty much the whole race. It was entertaining. Not much of a problem with dust and stuff then. But you want to know what? You had 150 laps and it dries out the track. They had 2 hours to prep in between, and the sun is lower by then, so of course you're going to have some issues. I would have loved to see it Sunday night next year, maybe on a long weekend. Someone on Twitter, a lot of people follow Justin Champagne. He proposed put it on 4th of July weekend. Now,
now we're talking.
I think that's a fucking solid move. The only problem, again, it's networks. That's NBC's time. And I don't think Fox wants to give up the Bristol dirt race because it's a draw.
They never will.
And just back to like ratings and stuff like that. I had a point I wanted to make with the Saturday night races. It's just a fact. More people go out on Saturday, so obviously the numbers are going to go down. The true NASCAR diehards, yeah, they're gonna watch. But I think Bristol dirt had that allure, that hype, and everything, where people would have gone out of their way to watch it on a Saturday night. So I will give you that, Matt. Even like people I work with, people I know that don't really follow NASCAR, but like they know I'm real into NASCAR. They were asking me questions about it. I was like hyping them up. I'm like, oh, you got to watch it. Even Monday morning, the one guy, little Joe, he's like, hey, I tuned in on Sunday. Was it canceled because of rain? I'm like, yeah, but it's going to be on 4 o'clock on Monday. I think he watched it. And honestly, like, I was on the edge of my seat. That's not hyperbole. Like, I was watching in my bedroom and I was sitting at the edge of my bed about this far, like a foot away from my TV, just in amazement of the race. Like, I thought it was awesome. And not just because it was a wreck fest. I just thought it was a great race.
Yeah, I think anyone who has watched a race with me can tell you that like the last like 5 or 10 laps, I'm a pacer, especially if my guy is up front with a chance to win it. I'll pace and I get, animated and I get really excited. Well, that's kind of how I was throughout the whole race myself. I was pacing. It was, I was like yelling at the TV. It was just action packed. And like you said, Whitey, an A+ for effort. They did a great job. They're going to work out the kinks. This was more of a learning curve than anything else.
And that's the thing. They haven't done it in 50 years,
right.
And I think for going in a shot in the dark, I think it was a success. The numbers were great for a Monday night race. They were really good numbers, TV wise. Attendance was out the door. Like, people said, like, who were in attendance. So like, I haven't seen this many people at a spring Bristol race, let alone during a pandemic when everything's limited. So
Marcus Smith said, I think the number was 36,000, which at Bristol isn't a lot, but in the middle of a pandemic on a Monday afternoon, after a rain out, that's a lot of people.
And can we just talk about this storm that rolled in on Saturday and Sunday? Like, no start time, nothing could have helped that. I mean, they were flooded in the parking lot. Like that was the storm of the year for them down there. I know, like a lot of people were complaining, like, "Oh, this is why you don't run Bristol in the spring. Wait until you get better weather." Here I gotta look on my phone. I screenshotted it. It was like the precipitation table for Bristol, Tennessee. It goes up to 4 inches of precipitation in July. In March, it's about 3.5. So no matter what time of year you ran this race, you're looking at about the same chance of weather across the board.
Yeah,
and it
Mother
doesn't-
Nature's undefeated. You know, I mean, there's
Mhm.
nothing you can do about it. She's undefeated. You have to deal with it. Everyone has to deal with it. There's nothing you could do. And the people that complain, I had it down here. Matt and I know this. We were there, and we were there for a pretty shitty weekend. And
We
you know,
woke up in a
we were-
puddle. That's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
That's
Like-
not. That's literally we woke up in a puddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we ran out of dry clothes. We actually had to drive to Cabela's
Yeah.
to get dry, clean clothes. Everything was
yeah.
muddy. Everything was soaked. That Chicken Bone Creek was overflowing when we were there as well. And you know,
Now, did
that
you
was
guys-
a Saturday night race.
So you guys went in the fall for the night race then? Okay.
So it was the night race, yeah. And
Yeah.
like, but to my point, these people, you know, that want to complain about Mother Nature, bitch, plan better. You know, we had till Tuesday off when we went.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, it rained. We didn't get the Saturday night race, and it didn't race on Sunday either.
Yeah.
You know, it went to Sunday night, but like we had those extra days. We planned for those extra days
Mhm.
because guess what? When you're a NASCAR fan,
Yeah.
you know,
You know,
that there's
you know.
a good chance it's going to rain out.
And
so
like,
plan for that. Put that in the plans. Don't just go for, you know, the weekend. What are you thinking? Plan better, people.
You have
Plan
to take
better.
that. If the race is on a Sunday, you have to take that Monday
have
off.
to.
You
And
have
You
to.
have to.
especially us, I think coming from the Northeast, you just plan for weather no matter what time of year you plan for weather. I mean, Pocono, we always take Monday and Tuesday off just in case.
Right.
Even last year when we went to the Daytona 500, you know, we scheduled our flight for Monday night at 9:30, which still wasn't enough to get the full race in, but like we saw most of it. So like, yeah, you gotta plan ahead a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, this isn't something new. Like rain and precipitation isn't something that just came about like this year. We know it's part of the sport. Like I said, I think a couple shows ago, we're gonna have more of these. So there's
Oh,
no
yeah.
reason to
Yeah.
bitch about it. Is
Oh,
it a bummer? Was it a bummer on Sunday when I woke up and I knew for a fact that we weren't gonna see a race?
Yeah.
Sure, because you plan a weekend, you're so excited, especially for this Bristol race, and it was a letdown. But you know that's just part of it. You always know that's part of it. So you just take your lumps and you move on.
Now, I did see a bit of news, and we'll cover in the news segment a little bit later on. Usually I like to get to news before we break down the race. I was just so excited. I just jumped right into it.
Sure.
But there is some news about some rain tires and some tracks we'll get into later on. Do you guys want to jump right into the checkers or wreckers, though? See what you thought was the best part and the worst part of the race, because I feel like we're blending lines right now. I just want to.
Yeah, I mean that'll be most of our highlights. Most of how we felt is going to be amongst our checkers and wreckers. I feel like so.
I feel like
we jumped right in. I think we could go right in.
I feel like I went on a real long rant a little bit earlier there too. I apologize. I don't even know how long I was talking for, but like I was so hyped for this race, especially on Friday. I know we all were. We were texting back and forth. And then like I went from fired up right to fired down on Sunday. I was sad.
Yeah. And then what did I
Monday
tell you guys?
jacked right back up.
Right. As soon as the truck race started, I texted you guys and I was like, my excitement that I had going into the weekend is officially back. Like,
Oh yeah.
and then once the race ended at like 10 after 7 on Monday night, what did we say? Should we record right now? And
Yeah.
then we were all like, no, bad idea.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
way
Too
too
fired
Way
up.
too emotional. Way too emotional.
Let's
I
give
was
it a day or
bombed.
two.
All right,
Yeah,
Matt.
the only time I got up out of my seat was for beers. You know what I mean? So
It's
like,
the only time you
yeah.
should get up.
but I do love the fact that, and this is what I noticed, and Whitey touched on it. You know, like we were texting and like we were going back and forth. Like we were all so excited for this
Oh, yeah.
race. So for the first two stages, we, you know, the three of us we're in a group chat and we were texting all back and forth, go back, like get each other hyped up and what's going on. And Whitey, calm down. But
I was freaking out. I was freaking out the whole time.
As soon as stage 3 came around,
silence.
Every single one of us, it was over with. We were just glued to. I didn't even look at my phone.
Nope.
I'm like, I can't text these. I was glued to the TV, and all of the texting back and forth and the hyping each other up.
Yeah.
It just stopped when stage 3 came around, and it was all business for us.
Go time,
at that point. Yeah.
So I was freaking out all of stage 2 because Reddick was on the radio talking about his oil temperatures and water pressure going up and crazy. I'm like, he's gonna blow up. He's running in the top 10. And he's gonna blow up right now. We were saved by a caution and then the stage break. So by stage 3, I was just like on the edge of my seat, biting my nails. I'm like, I hope he doesn't blow up. Maybe he can pull off a win. He was up in 5th at one point. Well, let's jump right into the checkers. Matt, what is your checkers and wreckers for the weekend?
So I am giving my checkers this week to Jerry Caldwell, who is Bristol Motor Speedway's GM.
Yeah.
They worked on that track as soon as it stopped racing Sunday night. They worked from 7:30 p.m. Sunday night all throughout the night and Monday morning until that track was ready to go. And they had it about as good as it can get. But the point being is they worked their ass off to give us a show on Monday. And I know there were a lot of quote unquote dirt experts on Twitter that I won't call out by name that were saying, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get in.
Yeah.
I unfollowed that guy real quick.
No, yeah, that guy got unfollowed quick. They were saying, I don't know if we're going to get the dirt race in on Tuesday. It might even be Wednesday before they get it in, before the track is ready. And Jerry Caldwell put double birds up and said, we got this. And they groomed that track to where it needed to be. And we got to go racing Monday. So checkers goes out to him. And then my wreckers, I like to try to get a little outside the box with my checkers and wreckers.
I already know yours. And I've been thinking the same thing for weeks now. I love it.
Okay, so yeah, my wreckers has to go to the plexiglass dividers in that Fox booth with
it's so useless.
Clint Boyer, Jeff Gordon, and Mike Joy there.
Yeah.
It goes up to their chins. They're not sitting.
No.
There's no reason for that. If one of them sneezes or has a little spittle come out,
it's right
landing on the other one. Take that plexiglass out because it looks foolish.
And you want to
never noticed that. Until you said it, I've never noticed that. I noticed the plexiglass there, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together as far as that's doing absolutely nothing right now.
Doing nothing for them.
So,
it literally. So for anyone who might not know for whatever reason what I'm talking about is literally they have plexiglass dividers in the booth in between Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer, and the plexiglass literally goes up to their chins.
And here's the thing. It's set up in a way where if they were sitting down watching the race on the monitors and looking out the window, it would do its job because it would be right above their head. But the thing is, they're standing the whole entire time talking to each other. So it does nothing. It's right here,
Yes.
And Clint Boyer is a moist talker. I feel like he's one of those dudes, nothing against Clint Boyer, but you could tell when someone talks, he gets excited, he's probably spitting on Jeff Gordon's face the whole entire time.
Yeah, so I've been looking at
that Busch car go around there, he gets a little,
his mouth starts to water.
Yeah, it starts watering a little bit.
But
man, I could go for one of those cold ones.
I've been looking at that plexiglass for 7 weeks now.
Yeah.
So it's time I wrecked it, and I had to just get that off my chest. I think it's so funny every time I see it.
No, I completely agree. That makes me laugh every single week. I'm like, what are they doing? And people have tweeted them and stuff, and they're like, whatever. It don't matter.
Yeah.
All right, how about you, Eric? What do you think? What's your checkers and wreckers?
My checkers this week is going to Daniel Suarez, man. He just put on one hell of a show, and he, I think, opened the eyes of everybody that was watching that race, and everyone that expected those dirt guys to win and be up front. And here's Daniel Suarez, Trackhouse Racing. He gave them their first top 5, and he led. I think it was 58. Yeah, he led 58 laps,
Yep.
and he had no dirt experience. He joked in the booth.
Zero.
I think they talked to him and he's like, yeah, 6 days ago was my first time. He goes, I really don't know what I'm doing out here. I'm just having fun and driving the car and learning. So like, that just shows that, what kind of talent Daniel Suarez has and, what he brings to that new team in Trackhouse. And, you want to talk about these new teams and Whitey, I think you have some stats on those new teams and where they stand. And everyone would think that, that 23 and Bubba Wallace would be at the top. And I don't think he is, Whitey.
So I've been paying attention to the new teams all year because like I'm interested in the sport growing as a whole. I like to see new ownership and I want to see those teams do really well. Of course, we have Spire Motorsports who's been around, but they're really like hunkering down this year and trying to do the deal. We got Trackhouse Racing with Daniel Suarez. Corey LaJoie is driving for Spire over there. And then, of course, we have the biggest story, Bubba Wallace in 2311 Racing. And everyone assumed 2311 was going to do phenomenal because they have this Joe Gibbs affiliation. And so far, I mean, they're still working out the kinks. I mean,
they've showed some speed, but they've also had a lot of bad luck happen to them too.
They've showed speed. Like even this week, Bubba had a tire go down. Last week, I think there was a pit road penalty. Maybe I know the same thing happened to Daniel Suarez last week. He had a pit road penalty. But again, like these are brand new teams. 2311, they just got their building, 3 months ago. Again, Trackhouse, RCR affiliate. Maybe they're a little bit more steady. They're on the RCR campus, so there's a little bit more to work with there. And right now, in the points of the 3 brand new teams, Trackhouse Racing is in. Oh my God, where is it? My notes are all jumbled up.
They're in 20th.
He's in 20th place. Bubba's in 21st place, and Corey LaJoie is back in 29th. Corey LaJoie has had some bad luck. He got wrecked out this past weekend. I think last weekend he blew up. I think he blew a motor 3 weeks ago in Las Vegas. So they've been having a rough go of it. I think they got wrecked out in Daytona. Or no, maybe he had a good finish in Daytona. But yeah, Daniel Suarez, I mean, he's in 20th right now. And, I don't think anyone expected Daniel Suarez to be doing as well as he has these last 2 weeks. Now, the rest of the season, we'll see what happens. But so far, there's some promise.
So yeah, giving him my checkers, like it was just a no-brainer for me. There was one point of the race where it became that no-brainer.
Yeah,
and it was when he gave Martin Truex Jr. a bump and run,
to
take the lead. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, Suarez is not fucking around today. He's going out. He doesn't care if that's Martin Truex Jr. in his old ride that he used to be in to make that pass for the lead. Like. That was a little like, hey, fuck you. Like, look at this. Bitch. I
belong here too.
Take the lead off of you, So when he made that move, I'm like, man, even if he doesn't win this race, he is just driving his ass off.
Yeah.
And you gotta love when they say, he does the bump and run. So when they called that out a bunch of times,
that's old Bristol. That's like old Bristol, bump and run. And you want to what? Like Daniel Suarez, he held on to it too. It's not like he moved Truex out of the way and then Truex took the lead back. Truex never took the lead back. We had 5 lead changes and 5 different leaders. So once you got the lead, someone else was coming up and taking it from you. It wasn't who you just passed. And I agree. Like you got to root for Daniel Suarez. I feel like he got shafted. He got pushed up to the Cup Series a little too early, bounced around to a couple different teams, and hopefully they build something great with Trackhouse, and it's a great, new story.
Fun. I just thought it was funny that last week, I was giving him some love and, about his new crew chief and him being, Spanish speaking and, maybe that would help him. And then here this, he comes out and, he just performs, he outperformed everybody.
You know what the ironic part is?
He was my checkers last week because he was performing really well in Atlanta until he had a pit road penalty. So.
You know what the ironic part is too, is like, leading up to this race, everyone kept using him as the example of like, whenever they would talk about guys who don't have any dirt experience, don't take them on your fantasy team because they don't have any dirt experience.
Yeah.
Almost everyone would always bring up Daniel Suarez, like, don't take Daniel Suarez. He's the main example of someone who doesn't know what they're doing out there on dirt. And then he goes out there and he proves everyone wrong. I mean, that's awesome for him.
one thing I noticed about Suarez on Monday night was something that I had noticed Truex doing in the truck race. Truex, as soon as the track, and it happened fairly early, where once it rubbered up and it kind of became a traditional Bristol at that point in time. And I think Truex, I noticed him driving straighter in, so he got a better exit. He wasn't really kicking that right side out and trying to, like, quote unquote, dirt race and race that style. He was racing it more traditional, get in there nice, get the truck straight for exit. So you had that exit out of there. And Suarez started doing that on Monday. I noticed that where he was, coming in slow and making sure that car was straight. He wasn't kicking it out. He wasn't wearing that, that right side tire down. And I just think maybe he watched Truex in that truck race and him doing that and noticed that after so many laps, once the track gets a little rubber in it, and that high side with the water down and that grip wasn't there, you can't really drive it like a dirt car. They called out Ty Dillon a couple times.
He was pushing it real sideways. Like, what are you doing, Ty?
It's like, what are you doing? Like, the track isn't cooperating with that style of racing right now. It's more, traditional. And in the beginning, you saw, Denny Hamlin and Reddick kind of make up some spots after the stage break when they wet the track down, and there was
got
grip
a little
up
bit
top.
more muddy and stuff.
There was chance to kick that right side out and get speed from that. But in that last stage, as like, they tried that again and they didn't redo the track after that caution, so the grip just wasn't there. Suarez was my checker. My wreckers.
Before you get into the wreckers, I just want to say, like, I think you make a great point with the how the track raced. And I think that's what the misconception was. A lot of people thought, like, oh, those dirt guys, they know how to run a dirt track. They're going to hang it out sideways, get real close to the wall. I thought that would happen. And then as it got rubbered in, you realize, like, oh, it's a really super slick track. It's like driving around a regular Bristol with, like, bald tires, So I think the guys that were able to adapt well, and I think that's why we saw Martin Truex Jr. lead so many laps and win, because he's not a dirt guy. Maybe that's why we saw, Daniel Suarez lead so many laps, because he's not a dirt guy. Joey Logano, the guy who won, admitted, like, he's not a dirt guy at all. So maybe it kind of played into their hands a little bit better than the guys who thought they knew how to wheel that cup car around. But Ricky Stenhouse Jr., great dirt guy, he came in second, so who knows? He was pointing it in too, though.
And my wreckers actually touches on that a little bit here, Whitey.
All right, let's get into it.
My wreckers are the dirt aces not performing, not living up to the expectations that everybody thought they would. Larson and Bell, like I said last week, ended up, angling up. They're out, top two guys.
Into each other.
Yeah.
Right. And Austin Dillon, he was having trouble. He 21st. Friesen, he was 23rd. Dirt guy, his brother Ty Dillon, 26th. Those guys, and that's what I kind of adjusted my fantasy lineup watching that truck race, and I realized how Truex was driving that track, and I'm going, wait a minute. Yeah, these are dirt guys, but this track isn't going to be a dirt track. Like, this is going to turn into, more of a traditional Bristol at some point in time. And I go, some of these dirt aces that they did bring in, they don't know the cup car like these other guys know the cup
like
car.
How many guys did Rick Ware Racing bring in? Like a bunch of dirt ringers, and they still did nothing. They got in the way. They wrecked out and they got in the way.
So, my records had to go to those dirt guys and their expectations, and I kind of knew it. I kind of saw it going in. But thankfully, my fantasy, I changed it last minute, knowing that, those guys weren't going to adjust to the cup car. Like you mentioned, Whitey, like, I think the guys that adjusted to the cup car and know the cup car were able to figure it out. Dirt, regardless of that, it didn't matter. If you were in that cup car and you have experience in the car itself, I think that was a bigger factor than having any kind of dirt experience, as we saw Truex and Logano with none, Suarez with none, and they performed well because they're wheelmen. They know the car that they're in, and it feels good, to see the Cup guys go out there with the talent and be able to perform, because I was real nervous that the Dirt Aces may go out there and dominate and the other guys can't figure it out, and it might have been a shit show. Like you said in the beginning of the show here, you didn't know what we were going to get. So seeing the Dirt guys kind of falter, giving those guys a little opportunity, and, you know, that made the excitement all that much greater.
Think about all the people too who would have taken, like, if there was a prop bet, you know, is Kyle Larson going to lead his 0 laps in this race? Think about all the people that would have lost that bet. Right. I don't even know if he cracked the top 5 at any point, you know, because he started in the back, and I know he got into I think 3 different sets of accidents.
Like P15 he was just at one point. And I was surprised because it was still real early in the race. I'm like, oh shit, like Larson made it up to P14. Here he comes. This is going to be something to, you know, to watch. And, you know, unfortunate, you know, you can't put all the blame on the Dirt guys not showing up. There was a lot of stuff that took a lot of those guys out. But, you know, in general, the ringers, quote unquote, like Whitey said, Rick Ware bringing in, like, they weren't a factor at all in the race.
I can't even remember who their names were, to be honest with you, which is disrespectful to them because, I mean, they're still competitors. But I'm actually going to change my checkers on the fly. You talked me into something without realizing it. So originally, my checker was going to be just NASCAR and Bristol for trying something different. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. Not hyperbole. I already got to all that. I'm going to change my records to somebody that we give a lot of shit to on this podcast. And that is the driver of the 00.
Don't do it,
Mr. Quinn Huff. Because during that first big wreck when Almirola got spun and everything, Truex was right there. He almost got into it.
He could have ran him right over.
Matt, who was right behind Martin Truex at the time?
Yeah, it was Quinn Huff.
Quinn Huff slowed his car down and did not wreck the leader. And
that's because he's used to going slow. That was his comfortable speed.
That's true, but still, like he was aware. He did not finish dead last. In fact, he finished 25th. He was 1 spot behind Cole Custer. He passed. He beat Ty Dillon. He beat Bubba Wallace. He beat Kyle Larson. He bet Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain, Eric Almirola, Corey LaJoie, Anthony Alfredo. Quinn Huff getting my checker flag for not wrecking Martin Truex Jr. during that first wreck. My records was the 4:30 or the 3:30 Sunday start, the 4 p.m. Monday start. I think they should have started it later on. Something they're going to learn for. I'm not going to give them too much shit. I was trying to think of another wrecker on the Audible, maybe. And I feel bad for Matt Reedy. He messaged us on Twitter. He's a big Denny Hamlin fan, and he made a bad move. My guy Tyler Reddick also made that move. So I'm going to give my record to Denny for, you got to commend him for trying something, but he could have had that win if he stuck to the bottom line. So
I don't know what it is about that 22 car, but I'm going to say one thing and one thing only, is that there is one driver that lived up to his word about taking out that 22 car, and it will.
Yep, it's Kenson. It's
Kenson. Oh, yeah.
How many other fucking drivers, and I'm sorry for getting a little upset here, but how many other drivers are going to call out Joey fucking Logano and say, oh, tell my spotter, he better watch out.
I got something for him.
He doesn't know. He think he's going to win. He ain't going to win. And it feels like every time a driver says that and calls out that 22, they don't do jack shit and he goes out and wins. So, like, I should have wrecked all the drivers that call out the 22 or any other driver and say, oh, he's got something coming. I'm going to take him out. No, you're not.
No.
If
you're going to do it, do it. You know?
Do it.
Especially on the restart too. Green, white checker when you're doing single file restarts.
He should have smashed Logano's back bumper so fucking hard that Logano went flying out into the lake that was a parking lot.
Yeah, and he could have too. He had the opportunity. And like is it Chris Lambert? I should know this. Hamlin's crew chief. Who is it?
I want to say it's Chris Lambert. Is his first? No, that's Joey Logano's crew chief.
Regardless.
I thought that's what you said.
No, who's Denny's crew chief?
Denny's. I think it's Chris Lambert, right? I should know this. We should all know this. Regardless,
Luke Lambert.
Well, Gibbs just did a
Is it Luke
shakeup. That's why
Lambert?
I'm confused. Because
regardless of who it is, regardless of the name,
DJ Majors.
No,
That's
dude.
a spotter.
TJ Majors is a spotter for
Chris Gabehart.
Chris Gabehart.
We were close. We had a general idea.
All anyway, right before it went green, he got on the radio and he hyped him up. He said, "Hey, he's one of the most aggressive drivers."
Yeah.
Pretty much telling him, all but saying, go wreck him, go get him, move him out of the way.
And
that's how you get fans too.
Denny in first, Logano's wrecking Denny for that win.
Oh yeah.
100%. If Logano's in second and Denny's leading that race, and Denny and Logano have past history. So in my eyes, Denny, it was a
short track racing. Well, that's just short track dirt racing.
Brainer for Denny to wreck him. When he didn't, fuck Denny Hamlin. Until the next driver besides Matt Kenseth, and I know I'm biased there, but like Matt said last week, I think I brought it up. I think I brought it up almost every fucking week because we talk about Logano. It just triggers me. It might have been one of the top moments in NASCAR. Everybody loved it. It was because finally a driver did what he said he was going to do. So,
I think the last time I remember a driver doing something like that was at Watkins Glen. William Byron put the bumper to Kyle Busch, but he ended up messing up the front of his bumper because he didn't know how to turn them right.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That was Chad Canal screaming in his ear. He's like, "You better fucking turn that son of a bitch," shit like that. So.
You just turned into a Quentin Tarantino movie here with all the F-bombs.
Started from the end, got to the beginning. Somehow we're in the middle. We're in the middle, 3 wide with Logano.
Yeah.
No, but that's my checkers and wreckers. I thought it was a great race all around. Not really much you could complain about besides, of course, the weather and everything for the weekend. I was disappointed they canceled the heat races. I was hoping somehow they could still do the heat races maybe Monday morning. But again, like you said, and you got to give a big round of applause to all those men and women on the track crew just working night and day to get it raceable by noon on Monday. So big kudos to everyone down at Bristol Motor Speedway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those guys prepping that track, I mean, just the way that they layered it. And I loved how, they explained that to all the fans. They put down the sawdust to help the concrete. And then they put a layer of, dirt from 2001 they had stockpiled. And
I thought that was the coolest thing too.
You know what else is cool too? Marcus Smith was on Dale Jr.'s podcast this week. And he said what they're going to do with the dirt that they just raced on, they're actually going to, obviously take it off the surface, go put it somewhere out in the campgrounds, and they're actually going to seed it and let the grass grow on it just to take care of that dirt. And then when it comes time next year, they're going to dig it back up and bring it out. He said they started working on the track the first week in January, and they just got it done a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And then he said it's going to take about 6 weeks for them to completely clean off the track. They're not done racing there either. I think there's they're
gonna keep it up there for pretty much the rest of the summer and do some modified races.
No. They're gonna. I think this week and next week they're gonna do a little bit of modified racing, and then they're gonna get it out of there because
really?
Yeah. So they need 6 weeks to get it completely done. And then they need to obviously assess the actual track surface itself to make sure that there's no problems or anything. They need to give themselves enough time in case there are any problems to fix it by the time we get back there in the fall. So, and it's an important race. It's a knockout race in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The next time we get back to Bristol in the fall. So they need to make sure that everything is smooth there and ready to rock and roll.
See, I originally heard that they were going to keep it up for a couple months and do some other things with it. Like you said, modified races in the next couple weeks. Right. Something I did hear, though, because, again, they want to improve this race for next year, they're already looking into different types of red clay to bring in to hopefully cut down on some of the dust. So, I mean, again, this whole weekend was an experiment from the beginning. And, they're working out the kinks as they go.
I think the dust isn't so much a factor as the dust
sunlight
combined with the sunlight. Yeah. I think at night, you're going to have dust. No matter what, you're going to have dust, but the sun dries the dirt out too fast and quick. So I think the dust isn't that
the
big of a deal.
reflection.
It's the sun and mix.
Yeah, the reflection of the sunlight coming through that
Yeah.
dust also makes it impossible to see as well. I mean,
It
how many
was
times?
like, those windshields, that view,
I don't know
man,
how they
that
saw
was
anything.
absolutely insane.
How
I was
many-
like
sweating just
crazy.
watching them.
Yeah, how many times have you been going down the highway? The sunlight comes right through your windshield. You
Oh,
can't
yeah.
see. Now add dust in front of you, dirt.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I don't envy those guys.
And you're an inch away from the guy in front of you.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like I give them all the credit in the world. They really are the best drivers, and it just goes to show you how quickly they adapted to the situation down there. Let's jump into it. We discussed most of the race there. Didn't really get into the truck race. I mean, Martin Truex Jr. kind of ran away with it. Nothing really to go on. Kyle Larson got in a wreck there too. So bad day all around for the dirt guys. Let's talk about the guy who came in last. Everyone always talks about the winner. Let's talk about the guy who came in last. That would be one Anthony Alfredo. Fast Pasta, involved in a multi-car pileup that almost took out the leader MTJ at the time. Of course, that was the accident I was talking about that Quinn Huff saved the day by not ramming into the back of MTJ. This is Anthony Alfredo's first full-time Cup ride. In fact, it's his first full-time ride in general. Last year, he did a part-time schedule with RCR's Xfinity Series program, and before that, he was part-time in the trucks. And so far, Anthony Alfredo not doing the best. I liked Fast Pasta last year in the Xfinity series. Of course, I'm an RCR fan, so I was rooting for him. I was happy when he moved up to Cup, but I think he moved up way too early. And I think it's going to be one of those stories, kind of like Daniel Hemrick a couple years ago, or even Daniel Suarez a couple years ago, where he's just in over his head, and maybe some time back down the Xfinity series might just do him a solid and progress his career. What do you guys think about Anthony Alfredo in the Cup Series?
Is it not necessarily what I think of him, but I actually have a question. What's the rookie race this year? Is it him and Briscoe?
Him and Briscoe count. Ross Chastain does not.
Right.
Let's see. It might just be the two of them. Although
I was just gonna say, because Briscoe, might kind of luck himself. Who else is there?
I think Quinn Half actually might be a rookie because I don't think he was full-time last year. Here, let me Google it real quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's not because the ride situation, as far as being open, like some of the people that went in, like Christopher Bell, people might assume that he might be a rookie, but
he's not.
He's not.
Yeah. Regardless, I think Anthony Alfredo has talent. He's made it to the Cup Series. He has some talent. He's not,
it's just Chase
situation.
Briscoe and Anthony Alfredo.
Okay, so Briscoe's pretty much going to luck into that one by default. He's going to win. He's going to win Rookie of the Year.
Well, here, let's see, because you want to know what? Chase Briscoe's not doing too great in the standings either. Let's see.
But I mean,
let's see how far apart they are in the standings.
I think Alfredo. I think he shows glimpse of talent, like you said, Matt, and like he does good things, but like a full race, it just doesn't seem to come together. And I think that's the team. That's he's taking a risk. He just he's part of one of those bottom teams where you kind of know and expect that that's the type of race you're going to have.
It's another one of those situations.
It's
another one of those situations where maybe he would have benefited from staying in Xfinity another year or two. As much crap as we give Noah Gragson, he's staying in the Xfinity series. He's learning, so
stuff,
a lot of guys are.
But how many guys are willing to take those Cup rides in that 38 car or in that?
Someone has to.
How many guys? Someone has to take that ride. Like, it's a Cup car. Yeah, it's a Cup ride, but you're gonna finish 35th every fucking week. You're gonna have a tough race week, and the super speedways, and maybe they thought this was a race that they could maybe do a little decent in. Like Whitey touched earlier, like. It is one of those Daytonas, Talladegas, road courses where you don't know it could be an unknown winner. So going in, they might have thought they had a shot at a race like this, but it's just that team. It just they never are going to be around. So like you can't judge Anthony Alfredo just yet. I mean,
no.
I agree with you, Matt. Like stay in the Xfinity for a little while. I think some of those lower tier teams in Cup that we talk about, that the Timmy Hills of the world that run in the back, and the 00 even. Some of those guys, I think those rides should be for like Dale Jr., for like Matt Kenseth, for like Bobby Labonte, for like, like Brendan Gaughan, like at least put somebody in the car that's going to like be able to like finish the race with it or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Like back
Eric,
in the day when
Eric, every week you have a batshit crazy idea.
No, you want to what? Like I kind of agree with him.
That was your batshit crazy idea.
I see where he's coming from, and you want to what? That's why I applaud like John Hunter Nemechek for going back to trucks. He knew he was like kind of stuck up the creek, and I agree because just think about like how long was Bill Elliott racing for in the back of the pack near the end of his career?
Labonte still races. He was 32 car, no sponsors on it, running like 6 laps down, but he's still out there giving it hell.
Like Martin,
he's not wrecking anybody. He's not in the way of the leader.
We spent way too much time talking about Anthony Alfredo. There, I said it.
Well, yeah, but you want to what? I want to get into this. When is it time that maybe we bring some of these legacy guys back to run in these back marker cars? I mean, yeah, Quinn Houff's okay in the 00 back there, but wouldn't you rather see Bill Elliott turning laps at 60?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they wouldn't get so much shit if it's like
we would be turning the sport into a circus at that point.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a circus.
What they're doing now, or what those Cup guys, ex champions would do. You know what I mean? At least they might bring eyes back.
I was going to say, at least they're names that could sell T-shirts. Put Matt Kenseth in the car. I mean, come on.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, I agree. I don't think that's as crazy as Matt made it seem. I mean, I don't know.
You usually have one batshit thing.
I don't know how feasible it would be either. But so I mean, there was a lot to talk about this Bristol race. I feel like we hammered a lot of it pretty quick. Is there anything you guys think we missed?
I have some things that I wrote down here that I wanted to touch on. Just some highlights that I thought I could bring up, and some of the things that I noticed. And one of them was the fact that Michael McDowell still running well.
Ran really well. He finished in the top 15.
He's P12 he finished, and he's P12 in standing still. And I think after his 500 win, everyone's like, who the fuck is this guy? Michael McDowell. Okay, road course, he's kind of good there, but like the schedule, the rules package, everything that's going on, like I just think it's benefiting him and his team, and it just shows that he is a talent. He's hanging in there with these guys. But sometimes it's just a situation that puts him in the back, and you can't fight back from that. So I thought Michael McDowell had a very good race, and he's having a hell of a first 7 races.
Yeah, I think McDowell is having a career season for himself right now. Right now, he is tied for 12th in points with Kyle Busch at 183. And guess who's locked into the playoffs? Michael McDowell is. Kyle Busch isn't locked in yet. He's 3 points behind Austin Dillon and Christopher Bell, who both have 186 points. He's only 3 points behind the 10th place spot in the standings, so early on in the season, we're like, Michael McDowell won the Daytona 500. That's outrageous. And people kind of dogged him. I think he deserved to win that race. He's always a player up in the front when it comes to super speedways, but maybe that big Daytona paycheck, maybe that's gave him a little extra sponsorship money.
That's all you need.
That prize money is, I think, 3 times more than any other race on the circuit. So maybe they took that Daytona 500 money, funneled it right back into the program. Maybe took a little money out of Anthony Alfredo's car because they are teammates, and funneled it into the 34. And who knows? We could see a career season for Michael McDowell. Could you imagine if he finished in the top 8 in points when it comes to playoff time? Now, I don't know if he will.
I could see it 100%.
But we can't rule it out the way he's running right now. It would be disrespectful to him to rule him out right now. I mean, I don't see it, but I don't think at this point we're allowed to be shocked. But there is a ton of racing left to do. So
of course
we'll still see.
Another batshit crazy thing would be, hey, all these road courses left. If he has a good starting position, he's great at road courses.
and
he might win another race. Michael McDowell could possibly have 2 wins.
And that's
I'll
what
give
I'm
that
saying.
to you. I don't think that's batshit crazy.
I was literally just looking up the schedule right now because October 3rd is Talladega. October 10th is the Charlotte Roval. I'm pretty sure Dega is a cutoff race. It was last year. Is it still a cutoff race?
No,
Didn't they
it's
keep-
not.
Okay.
Oh no, it's still in the playoffs. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a cutoff race anymore, though. It hasn't been for a couple years.
Regardless, if he could pull something off at Talladega, if he's still in at that point, because I think it'll be past the top 16. It'll move into, was it 12 at that point?
Yeah.
So like if he keeps up and he stays in the top 12 during the playoffs, he has a good shot at the Roval and Talladega to get himself into the round of 8. And who knows, maybe Michael McDowell goes pretty deep in the playoffs.
Never know. The only thing that I wanted to say, and we can wrap up the Bristol dirt race, is, and this was almost my checkers, is the race running time, boys. Green flag was at 4:18. Checkered flag was at 7. Checkered flag was at 7:09. That's less than 3 hours.
Perfect time
And there
for a
were
race.
10. And there were 10 cautions. So I mean, hats off. NASCAR, you can do it. You can get a race in that 3-hour window. You don't have to drag us out for
it's
4.5 hours.
you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of feeds into what all three of us have been saying all season so far is let's get these races shorter. Let's get them over faster. So NASCAR, it's possible.
That
and
actually
the racing was unbelievable.
That reminded me about the truck race. This pisses me off about NASCAR every week. So every week you look up the start time because it's different every week, and you see, oh, it's a 3:30 start time. Well, green flag time is like 3:47.
Yeah.
You know?
Rule of thumb is you have to add like
20
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: during the truck race on Monday, the start time was noon, and green flag was 12:02. Now I understand during a normal race weekend you want to get in. You know, the pop and circumstance, driver introductions, you know, you have the invocation, you have the national anthem, you have the flyover, all that stuff. I get it. Put that during the pre-race, and when the green flag drops, have the race start. So if you're going to have a 3:30 race start, have the green flag drop at 3:33, 3:35 at the latest. That way, at least we kind of know, because I'm always running around. I'm trying to figure out like how much time do I have. I'm checking Bob Pockers on Twitter to figure out, do I have enough time to shower before the race starts? Because I've been wallowing away my day and wasting time the whole entire time. So like, I don't know. I saw that during the truck race. I'm like, well, why can't we do this every week? Now I know 3:30. It's going to start at 3:33.
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I have a couple more highlights here, that little quick things that I just thought I'd noticed from the race as I was watching it. You know, I thought it was kind of cool to see that, you know, those pit stops, how they weren't.
I thought that was really cool too.
Quick, you know,
It looked like they were in slow motion.
Yeah, so that was an interesting part of the race that kind of threw me off a little bit, were those pit stops. It was fun to see.
So for anyone listening, if they're not aware of what was going on with the pit stops this weekend, the normal pit crews were not there. The guys that changed the tires in 12 and a half seconds were not there. This week, the whole entire pit cycle was done by the engineers and the fabricators from the shop.
The mechanics.
Mechanics, who a lot of those guys used to be old road guys. They used to be on the pit crews back in the day. I know Hendrick used to have a program. It was called like the lunch program, where like they would go out and do practice with the teams, you know, putting tires on, and then go back into the engineering floor like later on. So like a lot of those guys back at the shop, they know what they're doing when it comes to, you know, live pit stops and everything. And I agree, Eric. I thought that was really cool. It was nice to see them kind of work on the car, kind of work things out throughout the race, and really dial their car into. So I agree. I thought that was real neat.
Yeah, and I was kind of hoping, and like it kind of irritated me fantasy wise. I wanted to know what Kyle Busch could have done if that incident at the beginning of the race didn't happen. He looked like he could have been a absolutely dominant car in, you know, when he had that clean air up front. You know, they had issues and they had to work through it. Everybody did, with the mud on the grill and the Velcro and that whole situation with airflow as far as going into the engine and keeping it clean. But I thought Kyle Busch, if that incident didn't happen, it was unfortunate. He was the leader. He kind of got that cleaned up, and he took the brunt of that in the beginning of the race. And I thought if that didn't happen, he might have had a stellar run. But other than that, I thought Chris Buescher had a quietly good race, and he's having a quietly good year in Ford 17 Fastenal. And, you know, he's someone that we don't really talk about. There you go. And
Fastenal, great company.
Yeah, he seems to be,
for
you
all
know,
your vending
flying
needs,
under the radar.
All your industrial vending needs.
That's right.
I was going to say
he had a good race, and I did bring it up for that point though too, Matt. Like I did think of you when I did hear that, and you know, I just think there's a few guys, and you know, I noticed that with the Michael McDowell and the Buescher thing. Like there's some guys when I looked at this top 10, top 15, or top 16 for playoffs. Like some of the guys that are in, and some of the guys that are right there, you know, 3 or 4 positions below the cutoff that are so close, and not a name that you would usually see. So I think some of these guys that normally aren't in that top 20 or top 15 are running in there now. And I think the changing of the tracks and the schedule has a lot to do with that. NASCAR taking experiments has a lot to do with that. And I just thought that, you know, overall, like some of the talent throughout the field is just, it's the best that I think it is. And NASCAR, what is their advertising this year? This is the best season ever. And you know what? I thought about that. This might actually
be one of the greatest.
It might just be
7 races. Like, you know, there's some ups, there was some downs, but like looking into the future of this, like what's already happened in the first 7 different winners. You know, we got Bristol Dirt. We had the road course already.
Yeah.
We already had Daytona. We had a 1.5 miles. We had, you know, a dud. We had some amazing races. Like, and it's only 7 races in. So NASCAR, I thought they might have.
And it's kind of unpredictable at this point.
Don't look too fast here, but we are going to Martinsville night race in 2 weeks. A week and a half now. Yeah, I can't wait.
And then after that, it's Talladega. So who knows what happens in the next couple of weeks. Eric, I think you make a great point about Chris Buescher too. And I actually noticed Chris Buescher last year was solidly consistent in the top 20. He was always my big value pick for daily fantasy because he's a little bit cheaper. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Right now he's running 17th in points. So I mean, who knows? He could creep himself into the playoffs, maybe point himself in. Maybe he could win a Talladega or even who knows, Martinsville next week.
And as far as like the last thing that I want to bring up for today's show is my checker. When I was thinking about what it was going to be, my checker was almost us watching the race and texting. Like I got so much enjoyment like watching the race and live texting with you two. And you know what, one of my checkers was going to be the end of stage 2, just for the fact that all 3 of us were so hyped. We're so into it. We're all texting each other, and the chances that our 3 drivers were battling it out at the stage 2 end. That was one of the best battles of the day, I thought.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be the 3 of our drivers battling it out. You know, Eric was bumping into Chase a little bit there. And I wanted to bring up the fact too, Whitey, that our drivers, I didn't realize they worked well all day together. And I didn't realize that RCR connection, you know, and the communication. And I'm grateful that you were relaying it back and forth to me. So that was almost my checker, was the fact that our little message group during the race and our communication was, it made the race a little bit better for me and more interesting, you know, knowing that you guys were just excited.
One might say those 3 were giving each other the old bump and run.
Hey now.
Hey, definitely.
No, I agree. And you want to know what? It was fun. I was listening to Tyler Reddick's radio the whole time, and there was some beating and banging. And they were working as teammates because, of course, Richard Petty Motorsports does have that affiliation with RCR. They're on the same campus and all that. So they're checking damage for each other. But at the end of the day, you know, they still hang it all out on the line to try to win the race at the end. And you want to know what? Honestly, I think doing this podcast has made watching NASCAR just that much more fun this year because we're constantly bouncing ideas back and forth during the race, after the race, all week long. I feel like it never really ends. Like this is the most I've been hyped for NASCAR since I started watching, and I think Fox is right. I think it is shaping up to be one of the best seasons ever. And like you said, let's just give a little recap of the playoff picture right now, because we have 7 different winners in 7 races. Michael McDowell, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., young Ryan Blaney, and Joey Logano, your latest winner, all locking themselves into the playoffs at this point. I don't want to jump the gun too soon. We'll talk a little bit more about the playoff picture next week because, of course, this weekend there is no race due to Easter, but we'll still do a podcast on Monday night.
Jesus.
We need a little bit break. We need to calm the jets, cool down, get our blood pressure down, and we'll talk some playoffs next week because, I mean, could we see 16 different winners? In the beginning of the season, people started talking about, I never like to play into that kind of deal because, I mean, that's hard. 16 different winners is hard, but right now we're 7 different winners in, and we got a whole lot of racing left to go, so who knows? You guys want to jump into some of the news from the past week? And we got some big news yesterday and today. The first news story I want to talk about, and this was like a kind of feel-good story. Last Wednesday was the Pro Invitational, the Iracing Pro Invitational. And of course, last year with COVID-19, they shut the season down completely. Fox scrambled to figure out how do we get some sports on TV. They turned to iRacing, which is a simulator racing. They had all the Cup regulars racing, and they did a Pro Invitational, and it worked out very well. In fact, we saw some names you don't recognize up front, like someone you mentioned earlier, Eric Timmy Hill. He actually won at Texas last year. Well, this year they decided to do the Pro Invitational again. You know, we're missing out on practice. There's less TV slots to fill now, and Fox needs some programming. So, hey, why don't we get the guys together on Wednesday night? We'll do an iRace. We'll race Bristol dirt in iRacing before the big show on the weekend. Well, they invited all the regulars except for one guy, one former iRacing Pro Invitational winner, one Timmy Hill, and the internet exploded on Twitter. The hashtag was #LetTimmyRace. I jumped on the bandwagon. I wanted to see Timmy Hill racing. What did you guys think about Timmy Hill and the whole internet community kind of coming together to root for this guy and get him into the iRacing main event, which he later did for Team Penske?
That's what NASCAR's about, man. It's a family. You know, we can, come race day, we can yell at each other and bitch at each other. My driver's better than yours. But when it all comes down to it, the fans, the drivers, everyone in the community, it's exactly what it is. It's a community.
Yeah.
And we rally together for everyone. So good on them. Good on the whole NASCAR community. They, Timmy Hill deserves to be in that invitational. He won a race last year, like you alluded to. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't have much on that, but I did think it was really cool that everyone rallies behind, this guy for that invitational race.
I agree. It was nice to see the other drivers have his back. And, Keselowski ended up, I think giving him his spot in there and saying, hey, take this ride and go for it, right?
So what happened was Brad Keselowski couldn't run the race for Penske. So they were going to have Austin Cindric move up and drive the number 2.
That's right.
And then so Austin Cindric was like, hey, Brad, what do you think? Why don't we let Timmy have the spot? And they did give him the spot. My whole thing is, and I thought that was an amazing gesture.
Why did he get snubbed in the first place, though? Like every other driver, all charter guys, like everybody else, why did he get left out? Like, I don't understand why it had to come to this point. Like I never figured that out either.
So no one really had an answer. I want to say it was probably a charter system deal because his team is unchartered. They did run full time last year. They specifically ran full time so far this year to get into the Pro Invitational. And that's the thing that bothered me about the whole situation was because they had real life sponsorship deals tied to iRacing because last year his sponsors were really happy that they got the national exposure up front because he ran so well.
Hell of an iRacer. He's a hell of an iRacer.
He's a great iRacer. He's been accomplished. Everyone knows that Timmy Hill was one of the best even back then before he won a race because he's been doing it for so long. And that's what it kind of comes down to. iRacing has real life implications when it comes to sponsorships in NASCAR. And that's why I was real disappointed in the decision to begin with, because that's a smaller funded team. You know, we like to make fun of the Quinn House and the Rick Ware Racings and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, they're still spending the hard-earned money to participate in this sport. They're putting their cars out to try to win at least their race. They might be trying to win 30th position. And it was disappointing for me to see, like, you know, this small team really relies on that. They weren't going to be able to run real life Bristol dirt because they didn't get to run the iRacing event. And we saw that happen. So. But
I just thought it was nice that the drivers stepped up for him, you know, and all of the peers that he has in NASCAR, and, you know, good on them for making a big deal out of it. You know, a lot of people might not have thought that this was a big deal. And, you know, people listening right now are like, why are you even talking about this? But, like, at the same time, it is a big deal. Like you said, Whitey, for sponsor reason. Like, and we talk about how much sponsorship matters for these teams and how much sponsorship, you know, runs these teams in a way and allows them to race every week. And, you know, them kind of snubbing him was going to take that sponsorship away and really hurt the race team. So, I mean, they don't get a lot of airtime, but at the same time, this was some airtime, I think, that opened the eyes of a lot of people. And we're like, hey, like, let the guy race. Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
It's an internet race. It's like, come on. Like, if I was Timmy Hill, to be honest with you, if I was fucking Timmy Hill, I would have gotten whatever car I was racing, whether it be the 22 that Cindric was going to run, and I would fucking turn around and I would go backwards on the fucking racetrack and I would smash into the fucking leaders head on and be like, you know what? I'm Timmy fucking Hill. Fuck you and fuck your pro invitation. Is what I would have fucked. That's taken the ride, and I would have fucked everybody over.
We're gonna have to put like a double explicit on this episode.
That's a NASCAR heat move online through and through.
You know what? I would have done that if I was Timmy Hill, because you know what? He still, even though he raced, even though he got the ride, he shouldn't have had to go through any of that bullshit. And if I was Timmy Hill, I would have dropped my cock right out of my pants and smashed into everybody.
You want to what? I completely agree. And you want to what?
Easter week, nonetheless.
Well, you know,
on leading up to Easter weekend, Eric, you're gonna talk like that.
Say Hail Mary and an All Father
podcast. You animal.
All right, back to the news.
Well, I am out. I'm out of Jim Beam. It's the last that I have in my decanter, fellas.
God.
So
that's
gone off the rails.
That's still a pretty heavy part. We're gonna have to wrap this up pretty soon if he keeps knocking that one back. Another big piece of news, not even in the NASCAR world, but the NFL just announced that they are adding another week to the NFL schedule, going to a 17-week regular season, which will have some implications in the NASCAR world because, as most people know, the Daytona 500 is, what's that, President's Day weekend every weekend?
Yeah.
Usually is, because I get that Monday off, and it's a free day I don't have to take for work when I go down there. So, usually is around President's Day weekend.
Well, next year, President's Day weekend, February 13th, is going to be the Super Bowl. So Daytona 500, I would assume, is going to be moved up a week, which it used to be on that fourth week or third week years ago. Forever.
Yeah, I've been there when it was on the 23rd, 26th.
That's when,
like
when we went, it was later on in February.
So forever, it was on President's Day weekend, and then they moved it up a week, I believe, to coincide with like the Pro Bowl or something with the NFL for a couple of years. I think it was part of the Fox deal. And then they moved it back to its traditional weekend. Well, it looks like they're going to move it again a week ahead. I'm okay with it, though, because the last couple of years, we've been dealing with storms in Daytona. I know, like we said earlier, you can't predict the weather, and Mother Nature is undefeated. But hopefully moving it up a week in February might get it away from kind of the hurricane season down there, and maybe we won't see rain in 2022 for the Daytona 500. I just thought that was interesting. Some outside forces kind of forcing the hand of NASCAR a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it was like back when they were talking about this back in like the middle of last season.
Yeah.
When when they were talking about if the NFL has to shut down for a full week because of COVID
Yeah.
and push it back, it was going to be on the scheduled day of Daytona. And it might have been, Pistol Pete Pistone or Moody. It was someone on Sirius said, and this stuck with me. What if, now hear me out here, we just had the best sports day ever, because we're all football fans. Whitey, you're shaking your head no already. You already know what I'm going to say.
I already know this conversation. I remember it, and I specifically remember Pete Pistone saying it would never happen. It would be a disaster.
Okay,
a bunch of callers were calling in and saying, "Well, why don't we just run the Daytona 500 in the morning and the Super Bowl in the afternoon would be the greatest day."
That's exactly what I was going to say. I know it's not realistic. But it would have been.
Would not survive that day.
No,
nobody would.
Well,
and I would survive today.
And here's my thinking: people are either going to pick NASCAR or they're going to pick football. I don't think they're going to stick around on Fox or whatever network it is all day long. Plus, like, what time does the Super Bowl really start?
So the Super Bowl starts typically about 6:30. Yeah. So I was
going to say, what time does the pregame start? It starts at like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
No, the pregame starts like sometime like 4 or 5 weeks beforehand. Or at least that's what it feels like.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
It feels like it goes on forever.
Well, plus, as the sport's biggest event, Daytona 500 is the sport's biggest event. No hands down. You can't deny it. To put that on a weekend of the biggest sports event in the world besides the World Cup, I don't think that's a good idea.
I could see this. I could see maybe the same weekend event, maybe, like if
do like Daytona on Saturday.
Like do Daytona on a Saturday, NFL on Sunday, or like if it falls on President's Day weekend,
put it on Monday.
Vice versa. You have that Monday off, like and then. I kind of want my NASCAR because, football and NASCAR are my two sports, but I kind of want my NASCAR on a separate event. I want that to be a standalone thing. Like this year, me just purchasing a home, like I had my first Daytona 500 party here because I wasn't there because of COVID this year. So like, it is a big thing for certain people that aren't maybe stick and ball guys. So like it would be a cool thing, maybe a one-off thing like they've been doing and trying to test it out. Hey, maybe test it out, see how it works out. But as far as I just don't think it would work out. And I don't think it would be one thing that if they did do it, it would go and they would continue on in the schedule to do the Super Bowl and Daytona on the same day. I can't see that happen.
I wouldn't want to see either one be detracted from the other. I wouldn't want to see someone not go to the Daytona 500 in person because they wanted to stay home and watch the Super Bowl instead.
Sure. I get that.
I wouldn't want to see someone have to sacrifice watching the Super Bowl because they were at the Daytona 500. In theory, anything's possible. You can do whatever you want. You can run the Daytona 500 at midnight, in the middle of the night with the lights on, which I think would be a pretty cool idea anyways. But it doesn't mean it's the best idea. You know what I mean?
Matt and I were a part of one of those races, unfortunately, Whitey, and we drove back to Orlando, changed all of our clothes out, and then drove back to the racetrack, soggy, wet tickets. Just said, go in, go in, go in. Matt and I are running in there. We didn't even sit in our normal seats.
Dude, that was probably the furthest I ran in my life. We literally ran like a mile and a half, ran.
It's like legit running.
After a day of drinking, too, to get into the stadium, to get back into seats that we didn't even have tickets for to watch, the remainder of the Daytona 500.
What is it with you guys and just getting downpoured on? You want to what? When I went to
it's a thing.
You want to what? Last year when I went to the Daytona 500 with Eric, we got downpoured on too. We're drinking underneath a Sunoco gas station overpass to stay dry.
Right. So maybe Matt and I, we're used to this rain. We're used to dealing with delays, and especially in Daytona. And we had to deal with the weather this weekend, and with the rain there. Is there anything you think that they could do to the racetrack, to maybe prevent or help out some of this Mother Nature situation?
Well, I know Matt has one in the choose cone segment. What's it called? Man, the pickle lane segment. I'm having a rough one with our own podcast here. But before we get into rain and the track, there was some news today about rain tires that might be interesting because Goodyear is doing some tire tests for rain tires on short tracks. They're going to be doing it in the next couple weeks. Now, they want to try to see if they could run a rain tire not on an actively raining track, but just damp conditions at, a Richmond or a Martinsville or a Loudon, tracks with less banking. And maybe that could cut down on some weather delays. They said if testing goes well, they could have rain tires for Richmond. Would you be interested in seeing them run rain tires on some short tracks?
Yeah, if it works out. I mean, I don't think they're not gonna press it if Larson and Buescher go into this testing tomorrow, Thursday, and it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Or even if it doesn't, I don't even think it has to be a disaster. If it just doesn't seem like it's going to work out, if it's not feasible, I don't think NASCAR will push it. But with that being said, if they feel like it's safe enough and it's good enough, it's going to work out, then why not? If we can cut down on some of this red flag times, like, I have no problem with it. I don't know why anyone would have a problem with it if they test it and it works.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what happens.
Is this the first time they're actually doing an active test to see about a tire like this for short tracks only? Like, I know they have rain tires for road courses, but like, Matt saying no. Like, what was the other time that they tried to do maybe like a tire like this?
Terry Labonte actually tested rain tires at Martinsville actually back in '95. And it was the same. It was the same idea. They wanted to run it on like a wet surface, not like a downpour where there was like, standing water on the surface.
Right.
And I guess when it didn't work out because when they did try that test, I guess there was just too much standing water, and I don't know if they just never went back to it or whatnot. But it has been done before.
I believe the quote from Terry Labonte was, "When I was on the gas, I was out of control, and when I was on the brakes, I was out of control."
Yeah.
But again, that was 25 years ago. Hopefully, I would think the engineering might be there now. At least something to try out.
This is what I love about NASCAR, and I think I touched on this a few weeks ago as far as like the rules packages and what they're bringing to short track versus mile and a half versus super speedway, and halfway through the season, if some package isn't working out, they're willing to change it midway through. So I give a lot of credit to NASCAR once again for just trying something. Like, okay, people want to bitch about Mother Nature. We all agree. Hey, it happens. Plan a little bit better. But I like to see that my sport is trying to actively do something to cut down on those rain delays, cut down on those issues we have with Mother Nature, and trying to come up with a solution. And you know what? A lot of people are probably going to bitch and complain. Why are they even trying to do it? The race is going to suck. It's going to be the same. Like, my driver would have won if it was dry, or my driver, he's not used to that. Like, can't you just be happy that NASCAR is trying something? Like, they're trying to make the situation better for you as a fan. Like, that's how I perceive it. Is like they're actively doing something and trying to fix problems.
They're trying to improve, and that's what everyone complains about, those big red flag rain delays. If this could shorten them even by like an hour or so when it comes to track drying, I say give it a shot. See how it works. There's no harm in trying.
Right.
Let's jump into the pickle lane segment. A couple things were alluded to that I want to get to. Of course, is NASCAR trying new things. Choose cone is out. Of course, we saw the Iracing Pro Invitational last week, and Iracing is going to be doing a couple more races. One includes a Chicago street race. What do you guys think about NASCAR doing a street course race? Do you think that's somewhere NASCAR should go, or do you think they should stick to the ovals and the purpose-built road tracks?
We have to change at the times, right? Or we're going to be left behind. Just anything, not just NASCAR, but anything. You gotta be willing to change with the times.
Yeah.
We just talked about it. I love that NASCAR is willing to try new things, see if it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. they're kind of riding a hot streak as far as trying new things. You've got the Roval, you've got the Daytona Road Course, and now you've got Bristol Dirt. All three things were pretty successful as far as entertainment goes.
Yeah.
So why not? I've always been intrigued with the whole street racing thing, as far as the infrastructure that goes into place. I've always wondered, how do they close the lanes down and the roads, and they
so
have to
much
shut down
planning.
half the city.
The city has to be working with them.
It's probably got to be a pain in the ass to people who don't give a lick about racing, right? But regardless of that, if they're willing to try it, why not? It gives Chicago a weekend back, because they did take Chicagoland, their traditional oval, away from them, and racing through the streets of Chicago or any major city, that would be pretty cool to see. But just like anything else, the road courses, the dirt racing, I don't, hopefully it's successful, but if it is successful, hopefully they don't say, well, we're going to do Boston, New York,
yeah,
Philly,
we'll do
Chicago.
5 of them.
Right.
You don't want to get too gimmicky.
Sure. That's exactly right. And make it a circus. So if it works.
Not only gimmicky though, like, I don't think they tried the experiment, obviously, like with these 1.5 miles. You know what I mean? So like they went 1.5 miles. And like, okay, it some tracks it's good, some tracks it's bad. It was a kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
And like now NASCAR is kind of going, instead of like going 1.5 miles, like that was their big push for a while, 1.5 miles. Now their big push, I feel like, is road courses and just throwing in like the Bristol Dirt, something wild like that. I could get down with the street race though. Like, what is that they run? Like Monaco? Is that like one of the big ones, like the street race that they have?
Yeah, that's F1, yeah.
I think races like that could really grab the eyes of fans that have no idea about the sport. So like anything, once again, and I'll say that anytime NASCAR goes out and is willing to do change
to bring new eyes,
bring new eyes to the sport. And, could you imagine like Philly getting a race, which Xfinity is, obviously a title sponsor.
That's their headquarters are down there.
Xfinity now, because it's their close, like Pocono is Xfinity's home track.
Mm-hmm.
We never had Xfinity at Pocono. Now we do. So like, I could maybe see Xfinity being a title sponsor, maybe playing around with something like that, getting down into Philly in the streets, and imagine them going by City Hall or some of these,
going by Gino's.
That would be pretty cool.
Just some of these iconic places of a city, whether it be Philadelphia, whether it be Chicago,
hit the Rocky stairs.
You know what I mean? Like, So like, I think it would not only be cool for us race fans and fans of the sport, but I think it would be cool for other fans and of other sports like F1 and just people that are in the city that day. Like, what the hell's going on in the city? Why am I like, what's happening? Like, oh shit, this is wild. Like, it might bring, in Philly and some of these cities, it's urban, you know what I mean? And it might bring some more diversity to the sport as well.
Absolutely.
Get some of these people that might not ever think about going to a race. All they have to do is walk down, and 34th, and next thing you know, you're seeing Chase Elliott, blowing by you. So like, I could get down for something like that.
No, and to that point, everything I hear about street racing is it's a party. It's a big party atmosphere. I don't know if I would want to see it as opposed to Chicagoland. I thought we got some pretty good racing in Chicagoland. I would hate to see that track go away. Well, I would like to see the experiment. I would like to see them do a street race in Chicago. And to your point, I would like to see them do multiple cities, maybe one street race per season in a different city. You go from Chicago to Philadelphia, Boston, LA, you get all over the place. And exactly, you bring the sport to the people and you gain a whole new fan base that way. I just know that street racing in general isn't the best competition racing. And I would hate to see them kind of give up the racing product just for a gimmick,
Yeah, I agree.
And that was some people's concern this past week with the dirt race at Bristol, that they were going to give away competition for a gimmick. I didn't see it that way, but I could see people being opposed to the street race in that way. All right, the choose cone is back out. I think you guys made a great point for street racing. I'm all for the experiment. We saw the return of practice this past weekend. Do you think we need 2 practice sessions going forward, or can we get away with 1 or none at all?
So I'm a big believer of if you're wrong, admit it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Own it, ownership, something that, some of the guys out on the track don't have, but I'm a big believer in it. A couple weeks ago, I said that, I didn't miss practice and that if I never see it again, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I sitting there watching practice on Friday, it just made me realize like, oh my God, did I miss? I didn't even know I missed it
Yeah.
until I was watching it. And I was like, oh my God, I missed this. It gives you so much information to lean on going into the race weekend. If you're a gambler, or even, throw gambling out the window, even if you want to get an idea of how your guy is going to perform throughout the weekend. It just gives you such an insight on how the cars work, no matter, if it's on dirt, if it's on concrete, if they're, driving in water, it doesn't matter. You just get so much info about these cars, and I missed it. And to answer the question, yeah, 2 hours. I know before I said, knock it down to an hour or maybe get rid of it altogether, but I was wrong. I would like the 2 hour thing, 2 separate hour-long practices, and give these guys a chance to tune up their cars to give us the best product on Sundays.
I'm going to disagree. And I'm going to agree with you, though, Matt, on the point where own up to what you think or what you might have felt. Like, I thought previously, we need practice. We need that. My driver could use the practice. My driver, he needs to work that out. He's in a new team. He has to figure this out, give him more seat time, and maybe he gets some better results. But that, I think I was in too much of a tunnel vision and just focusing on my driver and not the product of NASCAR as a whole and a sport. Look at this year, what it's done. Look at the fact that these guys coming off the hauler, if you're a good driver, if you have a decent crew, whether you're a top team or a low tier team, practice really, to me, it's the ultimate equalizer, I think, because you get rid of it. You don't have the Kyle Busches being able to really dial in his car. He's got to do it during the race. And I think if we had practice, I don't think we see as wild of a year as we've seen. You give practice back, I think we go back to Hamlin winning 7 races, Harvick winning 7 races, Kyle Busch.
Yeah, but they didn't have practice. They didn't have practice last year, and Harvick and Hamlin won a ton.
Well, so there was a little bit of R&D factor into that, though. I heard an interview with Ronnie Childress, the crew chief of Kevin Harvick, and they were figuring out how to make like loads and loads of downforce through their wheel wells, and NASCAR caught on to it. And I think that just goes to show you the divide when it comes to R&D and some of these teams, because there's teams in the Cup garage who didn't even understand what the new rule change was because they didn't figure out how to make that downforce yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Some teams' practice involves working on the car.
Yeah.
Most of the top tier teams, practice to them is just R&D. They're not really, they don't give a fuck. Like, they're not really practicing to get better for that day. They're practicing to get better for 6 weeks down the road to figure out what they're doing with that car. I feel like practice to these bottom tier teams, would help them more than like the top, like Joe Gibbs. And I just think that, practice, it allows teams to really dial in their vehicles. And, without the practice, like I said in the beginning, I was a proponent of bring practice back. My driver needs it. I need him to practice. But don't you think that without the practice, like, it's made it a little bit more interesting? And I know what Matt said, like, with the, they didn't practice last year, but this is the first time that they're doing the traditional style of qualifying without practice.
Yeah.
Last year it was hit and miss. They did the ball. They did points.
So last year
around with it.
Last year they were kind of like flying by the seat of their pants, just trying to figure out. Yeah, they were pulling bingo balls to figure out the lineup every week. Right. Now they have a formula. It kind of works out. I think the formula is fair. just sucks for certain guys that might have like a bad week. It throws off your qualifying, but
Right. So,
but I see both aspects because like Matt, I didn't think we needed practice before I saw it again on Friday, and I'm like, oh man, I missed watching practice. And I know the casual fan doesn't give a shit about practice. They're probably not tuning in on a Saturday morning to see them, turn 5 laps and dial their car in. But for me, for someone that plays fantasy, who does daily fantasy, and someone who likes to bet NASCAR, you get a lot of information during those practice sessions, and I feel like we were missing out on it. I mean, Ryan Blaney was one of the better guys in practice on Friday, and up until a wreck, he was running really well. And then he even still had a top 10 finish with the back of his car kind of destroyed. So you kind of get an idea where these guys are stacking up in practice.
so what is the ultimate purpose of not having practice then? Because in my eyes, if you get rid of practice, like hear me out.
Yeah.
If they get rid of practice, right, which I don't necessarily think they need the practice.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think we've proven that, like Matt said last year. I don't think they need the practice.
No.
But I think if you get rid of practice, which, like I just said, I don't think you need it, but leave that Friday and Saturday, which you would practice, leave that open if you know the weather looks shitty for Sunday, Monday.
So
if you're not having practice, how about what do you guys think about not having the Cup race on Sunday and bumping it forward or backward to Friday or Saturday? Like, you're not having practice. If the weather looks good Friday or Saturday and you're not having practice,
you can't do that. There's too much planning when it comes to people getting to the track. People take days off,
But this is the whole thing with practice. And I guess it's COVID related though too, because
it's COVID related.
They wanted it the least amount of time at the racetrack.
Yeah, and even now,
there all the time.
And even now, it's cost saving. It saves the teams a lot of money to not run 2 hours of practice. You don't have to bring a backup car in case you wreck in practice.
Saving on tires, saving on gas.
I could go either way. I enjoy watching practice. I like to get an idea for my fantasy team and for betting purposes.
I think we could all agree that for the sport of NASCAR, the teams
but I don't think it's necessary.
Don't want to have practice because, like you said, they save money. The teams would rather not do it. But as a fan, I could agree with both of you that I enjoy watching practice. I like watching it. I gain a lot of information from it. I take that information into Sunday, and I touched on a little bit, Whitey, with the fantasy aspect. You get to kind of know what you're doing with your lineup. So I like practice, but I can see why they're not going there. But if you're not going to practice, use those days to kind of maybe, I don't know, NASCAR's willing to play around with everything. Why not play around with the whole entire weekend? If you don't need to be there for 3 full days, then what are we doing?
Figure something else to put there, I would like to see more 2-day shows. I would like to see double headers and stuff like that. But I think we focused on practice a little too much. We're running out of daylight here. We're running out of time. One thing I didn't realize, next year the next gen car is going to composite bodies. Of course, they have them down in the Xfinity Series. Real quick, don't want to get too far into it. Do you think that's a good idea for Cup, or would you like to see the metal bodies that could cut down tires? Or do you want to see them be able to bounce into the wall a little bit and keep on going?
The Xfinity Series has the composite bodies, and they still produce a pretty freaking good show. So sure.
Yeah, I don't think the composite body metal, to me, get 2 birds stoned at once,
And to the naked eye, it doesn't
Most
look
people
any
won't
different.
know.
Yeah, I won't even notice.
I like the composite bodies for Xfinity Series. I think it makes it exciting. You don't have to worry about wrecking your car out too early on. My guy Tyler Reddick, he used to put his car into the wall in the Xfinity Series a lot, and he won at Talladega with a car that was mangled. I have the die cast right here. I'm making a mess, but I mean, that was a composite body, and he won the race with it. I would like to see that in the Cup Series, but I do like the traditional thing about, you smash into the wall, you cut down a tire, it ends your day too. That's why you want to protect your equipment. Matt wanted to get into Marcus Smith, the owner and president. He's the owner and president, right, of Bristol.
Well, he's SMI. He owns.
Oh,
like, I don't
the
know,
whole
what is it,
group.
8 or 9. Yeah.
So they're in charge of Bristol Motor Speedway. Of course, over the weekend, a lot of rain, a lot of people angry at Mother Nature, saying we shouldn't be there in the spring. He was on the Dale Jr. Download today, and he mentioned the possibility of putting a roof on Bristol. I want to know, do you think that's a good or bad idea? I have my thoughts on it, but Matt, you said you were going to sell us on it. I was kind of selling you against it in our group chat.
Sell me, Matt.
Sell me, Matt.
So it's not necessarily a roof. A roof is probably the wrong term for it. What he was talking about was do you know, Eric, because you were there. So Colossus, the huge TV screen that they have suspended up over the infield there, they have gigantic cables that run up over the outside of the racetrack and then down, and then they have them anchored into the ground outside of the racetrack. And like those cables are as big as my leg. They're huge in diameter. They're specifically, to hold, huge amounts of weight.
Yeah.
What he was talking about was more or less like almost like an umbrella or a tarp or like a heavy type of tent type of deal to put over the top of it, suspend it like Colossus.
You could kind of arc it in and then have it funnel somewhere.
Yes, and
that makes sense.
And then Dale obviously was excited about that, but he did have follow-up questions, which I'm sure everyone would.
Yeah.
What about ventilation for the noise, for the fumes, and all of that? And he didn't go. Marcus Smith didn't go into it, but he did say that we've addressed it, we've thought about it, we will have something in place to take care of all that. Keep in mind, if it's just some sort of, we'll call it a tent. For this conversation, if it's some sort of tent, it's not going to be sealed down to the top of the racetrack, so there is going to be airflow where the dirt and the dust can come out of the fumes can flow out of anyway. So it was a really cool idea. He said hopefully if that is going to be something that happens, he would like to see it done within the next 5 years, but it's not a guarantee, but it is definitely something that they have in the works. It sounded like.
See, when you originally mentioned it, I was thinking like a detractible roof like they have in arenas and stuff. Right. I was just thinking about like monster trucks in our arena at home. I mean, you get gassed out, you leave with a headache, your ears are ringing, and that's like 4 monster trucks.
The chili bowl flu.
Yeah, people getting sick of the chili bowl.
I was thinking more NFL, where you have this like the retractable roof where you could close it and open it. And if you have shitty weather coming in on Friday and Saturday, you have the roof closed. So then, the track stays what it is. And then, on Sunday, you reopen it. But I know that's hard to do. You can't retrofit an old stadium to something like that. So like Matt's saying, what I thought of when you were explaining that, Matt, was like almost they're putting in like a rain gutter.
Yeah,
it's almost like a rain gutter. They're gonna catch
like a giant rain gutter. Just bring
like a giant rain gutter. Put something like a tent, whatever, that's gonna capture the rain. Like you said, Whitey, have it funnel out to one section. Maybe have multiple pipes and channels.
You'd have to have like a funnel in like every single section.
One big rain gutter. You know what I mean?
It's essentially, he said the best way to think about it was essentially an umbrella over the racetrack.
Yeah.
A huge industrial, sized umbrella over the racetrack, so the water flows outside of the track itself. In theory, it sounds like a good idea. You can't do it out of Bristol, a Pocono, or I'm sorry, you can't do it out of Daytona, a Pocono.
No.
But like,
but Bristol is
it's tight. You know what I mean?
Bristol's very unique that way.
The only thing that I thought of just now, and I mean, it wouldn't affect the show itself. It would just affect the fan. Would be, what do you do? Like if Bristol flooded, dude. Like that was a stellar storm. Like the parking lot with the lake, like Trackhouse had their little remote control boats out there. People were running stuff. So like, you'll save the racetrack, which is good. You'll get the show on, but
are you going to end up
go somewhere?
Are you going to end up flooding the campgrounds because of it?
Right. Yeah.
Are the vendors outside going to get destroyed?
Yeah. Yeah, that was.
But at least it would save the racetrack. At least it would save the racetrack.
You want to know what? I was skeptical at first. I had an image in my mind, and you want to know what? You sold me on it. If some engineers can figure it out, I say go for it. Why not? I mean,
engineers could figure out how to hold Colossus in the middle of
I
that.
don't understand how that thing is up there. Like, I would not feel safe in the center of the track with that
if
thing
you saw
right
the diameter
above
of the cable that was holding that up there, dude.
I don't
man.
care. Accidents can happen anywhere. I don't trust that shit. No way. No how. With that being said, I think it's time to wrap it up. We're getting real late in the day here. Of course, this weekend, no race. We're off for Easter. Happy Easter, everybody. I hope the Easter Bunny is really good to you. Hope you bring some Reese's Cup eggs and some marshmallow peeps and all that jazz. We will talk to you Monday night. We'll give you a little preview on Martinsville coming up the following weekend. We'll cover some NASCAR news. And I teased it earlier. We'll talk about the playoffs, who's in, who could possibly win their way in, maybe who points their way in. We will talk to you again next time. For Matt, the Statman Reilly, for Daytona Ron, I'm Michael D. White, and this has been the Bump and Run Podcast. Have a good night, everybody.